With everything currently going on in the world today, many of us have turned to games for a bit of escapism, even for how brief it may be. However, sometimes a game is released that can be related to the present day. Today, we are looking at The Plague: Kingdom Wars, an early access strategy game that takes place during the period of Black Death in Europe. Is this a good game worth investing in its own right, or should we all just stay 6 feet away from this title? As a disclaimer, I did receive a free code from Reverie World Studios. While I do appreciate the free code, I will not let it deter me from giving a fair and honest review. So you start the game by picking a noble from a variety of different nations to choose from, and currently there are over 200 nobles to choose from, which sounds freaking amazing in terms of quantity. But gameplay wise, every noble you start with is pretty similar regardless of the faction. More on that later. This selection screen I'm fine with, but there's two things I would do. Please list the difficulty when you click on the noble to know what's easy and hard. And also number 2, show where the hell on the map they are. So I decided to start out as a noble for the Knights of St. John, and the game starts with an intro for your faction. Different things are written depending, obviously. Some of these intros are actually voiced while others are not. This isn't really too special, but it is well appreciated. Right off the bat, visually, the game is unimpressive, but the music is actually pretty good. I bought the soundtrack to this and I would definitely recommend it. The sound design though is a bit lacking. So after the intro, you start the game with your advisor approaching you with the current situation, basically telling you who you're at war with and what to do with the upcoming plague. You can honestly just shoo him away, or you can ask him and try to inquire more of what's going on. So the first thing you should do is to build up your towns and your hamlets. Your towns are obviously bigger, your hamlets are smaller. When you enter one of these, it brings the Chancellor to help guide you on what to do next, and this acts as a bit of a tutorial. It's not 100% complete yet, but it definitely helps you to recognize how the economy works. So in a nutshell, the economy basically works like this. You have silver, food, wood, and stone as your resources. You use these resources to build buildings and recruit units, and some of these buildings can provide the said resources as mentioned above, and those buildings can actually help with other concerns that you need to know. Satisfaction of your villagers to make sure you can enter the towns and there's no revolts, and also the health of the place too, because as said before, you can get infected from the plague. More on the plague mechanics later. Leveling up your settlements allows more building slots to be present as well as walls to be built. I thought that you can do this when you're in the town, but I actually figured out you can only do this when you're in the overworld, and unfortunately the game doesn't specify that, so I really hope that it can do so players like me won't get confused, or any new players I should say. When you enter each town or hamlet, you only have a set amount of time to be in the places that you own, and this is known as personal time. Now personal time can be replenished every month. In my case, it was 5 minutes were added every month. You can also build and recruit in the overworld, so it's not complete. It doesn't completely lock you out if you run out of time. But in this way, it only costs silver instead of your resources. Now the thing is, early on you have resources but you don't necessarily have silver, so it's a bit of a challenge early on, and you need to know how to balance how much time to give each city. Technology is also another important element that you shouldn't slack on. Now you have 8 trees to work through, and you need resources to get the text, and once you have it you can instantly research it, and this allows you to unlock a new variety of buildings, units, and other bonuses too. It's very important early on, and this can help you get an edge and avoid some of the tedium and issues that you may have. One thing to note too is this game is all in real time, so it's similar to Crusader Kings 2 in that regard. You can speed up the time in your towns and your hamlets when you're inside them, as well as in the overworld. As of now, the max speed is only at 2, but I wish it was a bit faster, especially during the downtimes when you're just waiting for things to happen and to get more personal time. As expected, combat is another major element in this game, so you can recruit your units from your towns depending on what buildings you have and the technology that you've researched. You can choose to manually participate in battles or auto-resolve them. Unfortunately, you can't control 2 armies at once, so if you fight a battle and invite another allied army to join you, the AI takes control of it. And gotta be honest, the AI does not do a good job, so it's a bit frustrating. The goal of each battle is to destroy the enemy manor or all units if it's just a naval battle. It's basically you click on your units, you select, and attack. It's very simple. It lacks the fluidity of a total war battle, but fortunately the tactics are there. I mean, you got your spearmen beating cavalry, rear charges are effective, cav destroying missile units and melee are effective, different formations, etc, etc. It just may not be as smooth as you would hope it to be, or maybe just not as effective as those games are, but they're still very important and shouldn't be neglected. One thing that makes the battles unique are that they use resources that you have. Fun fact, you can actually lose the battle if you run out of food or silver, and you can build these buildings during fights to keep resources fresh, as well as buildings to recruit new units. So it's a very interesting dynamic, and it makes the battles feel a little more dynamic, and seems like even if you don't start out with the strongest units, you can probably find an edge just through endurance if you can. So this game is called The Plague for a reason, and that's where most of the focus for this game is. And for the plague mechanics, there's different measures that you can take to prevent your citizens from becoming infected. As the game goes on, you'll hear different news pieces about new places being infected. Some of these measures that you can take, some are small, like cutting trade, but others are more drastic and may infuriate some people, specifically burning the corpses of the dead and quarantining the city off. There's also an Undead Mode, and basically it sounds like a medieval zombie apocalypse simulator, since every time someone becomes infected, they become part of like this undead army. So you basically are just fighting zombies in the medieval age, and that sounds pretty awesome. We need that. Total War medieval zombie simulator. We need that. So what ultimately is the goal? It's kind of open-ended in a way, but eventually what you want to do is become the king of your faction. There's no rush, as the king doesn't really do anything in response to you growing in power. It really is up to you when you want to turn your back on him. I personally have not done this yet, just because I never felt comfortable enough to do it, or really feel the need. Like I'm really my king is at war with everyone, so I never really saw an opportunity to turn my back on the enemy to do this. From what I can tell, is it opens up the game and there's new options for you to explore, so it's kind of cool to see you rise in rank like that. And I mentioned this before, but one issue that I have is the lack of diversity between the factions. The units are basically the same regardless of who you play as, so there really doesn't feel like there's a variation in units. The names may be different, they may be called something else, but they basically play the same roles and have the same strengths and weaknesses. So it is unfortunate. I wish there was a bit more diversity. Maybe some factions don't get access to certain units like knights and stuff like that, while others do. Just something to differentiate, you know, the different factions that you have, because you have a ton of them. So more variety would be, you know, would be appreciated. So for an early access title, it definitely has its share of graphical glitches and oddities here and there. Thankfully, I haven't ran into any game-breaking bugs, but it seems like some people have, so your mileage may vary, depending on your setup. Overall, I do enjoy this title and what it has to offer. I enjoy conquering foes and building up as a noble. The combat is fun, even though it does lack polish and it's not on the level of Total War. Resource management also works very well. The economy, I enjoy it. I just wish there was more variety in the factions and a bit more polish, but I'm very curious to see where this goes. So I wish these guys all the best, and hopefully this title gets better and better. Thank you guys as always for watching my videos. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I hope you guys stay safe. This is Powerhouse signing off.